Hey guys, it's Yorkie here and welcome to the channel for some Assetto Corsa Competizione gameplay, where today we are going to be racing around the Nürburgring GP circuit in what turned out to be probably my most intense and action-packed low-fuel motorsport race that I have had so far. We're driving the Audi R8 LMS GT3 Evo 2, as you can see, and we're just going through the setup, just making a couple of small, very minor tweaks, just in preparation for what could happen here in this race, just in case I need to make a pit stop. It's a 25-minute race, so I shouldn't need to make a pit stop. However, if we did have a crash and needed to pit for some repairs, then at least there's things set there ready to go and I don't have to worry about adjusting too much. Either way, as mentioned, this was my probably most action-packed and closely fought intense race that I've had with the LFM service so far. At this moment with this race, I was kind of in and around the 2000 iRating ballpark. I think I was just knocking on the door of 2100, so we were in top split. So it is a very competitive field with some very, very quick drivers. I managed to qualify in P18, which, if you kind of know me, qualifying is not my forte. It's not my strength. It's the race pace, the consistency, and being able to work my way through the pack in the race and kind of avoid incidents, which we shall get to in just a very short moment. So hold that little thought, that little note there, as we now actually form up with the mini rolling start formation lap sort of thing that ACC has here. So we're going to be starting on the left hand side of the grid, just trying to generate a little bit of heat into the brakes, trying to get the tyres up to pressure slightly and trying to maintain some of that tyre temperature that comes preheated and pre-baked into the tyre for the beginning of these rolling start phases. So we're just now getting our way through the final turn now. Now we switch over into the actual rolling start phase, and you'll see I'm using a technique of holding the power down fully and then using the brake to try and control the speed. The main reason for that is because I'm demanding 100% power from the engine with the throttle, and then just using the brake, and then all I've got to do is react by lifting my left foot instead of going partial throttle then full throttle and waiting for the power delivery to kick in. Anyway, here we are trying to find a space coming into turn one, looking to the outside a little bit, but the Audi that's there in front of us, that black Audi number 10 car, jinks slightly to the left, that shoves us out a little bit wider. Up in front we've got a little bit of chaos happening, so go to the inside just to try and give myself a little bit of extra room and avoid making contact with any other cars. We join the track now, but once again here in turn 3, more chaos, more cars spinning off, so once again holding a very, very tight line. We managed to filter our way through though without any contact with any of the other cars, using the available runoff and the space on the inside of those two corners. Settling in now in behind this Porsche, I've got a car, another Porsche by the looks of it, that's got a drive-through penalty. Is very, very close on my rear bumper as we come through the left-right sequence and begin down the hill down towards the hairpin at the bottom there. And it looks like once the positions kind of sort and settle themselves, I've gained 9 positions over the course of the opening sector on this first lap here, obviously coming from P18 up into P9. So off to a great start already. Just need to try and settle into a bit of a flow and a bit of a rhythm, try and get the temperatures in the tyres, which seem to be there holding quite nicely. So it's just a case of bringing the pressures up and bringing the tyres into the right window, as a couple of the cars there in front of us battling away a little bit. The Porsche compromised slightly coming through the corner, and then on the exit actually going and dipping the wheels onto the gravel. That's going to hurt their momentum coming off the corner, and you can see I'm now starting to gain. Porsche, not the quickest car in a straight line, and we're closing up as we come up towards the chicane here. I'm on the inside coming into the braking zone, just slightly ahead, just about managing to sneak on through and gain another position there before the end of the lap, as the Mercedes up in front seems to be floating and sliding around all over the circuit, obviously having some connection issues there. But with lap 1 done and 10 positions gained over the course of that lap, avoiding any contact with any other cars as well, we've been off to an absolute dream start here in this 25-minute race at Nürburgring GP. Obviously very, very tense and having to take quite a bit of avoiding action coming through this turn 2 here, and then also the subsequent turn 3, and on the exit of turn 4, as you saw, ran off wide just to try and give myself some space and try and stay clear of other cars, as they're obviously going to be moving around trying to avoid the cars that are spinning out across the circuit in front of them. So very much got my wits about me. And yeah, very much looking after number one. Self-preservation is the aim of the game there in the opening lap, and usually it results in gaining a whole bunch of positions. So very, very pleased with this. I feel like I can actually do something here, especially with the 3 cars up in front of us battling away. It looks like that one of the 2 Audis that's up there, one of the 2 black carbon Audis, I think the guy that's in 5th position, Romanenko, has got some damage to the rear of their car. So if that's going to be impacting their overall performance, it's probably going to be holding these 2 cars up here that's in front of us and allowing us to close in. As you can see, the gap has come down from about 0.6, 0.7 of a second down to less than half a second now as we again begin the run towards the chicane. But I do have J-Boy in the Porsche behind us, lurking there, looking and threatening to take any potential opportunity that I present to them, as the number 10 Audi a little bit compromised there going through the chicane. So going slightly defensive here coming into this final corner, as the Mercedes looks like it's gained a position over the Audi that had a poor exit coming off the chicane. 155.6 on that previous lap. 2 cars in front looking to go battling, so going to take the usual racing line and just hope that the guys behind settle in and don't do anything stupid. Got very, very close there at the apex of turn 1 to the rear of my car, but managed to avoid any contact as we get very close to the back of Bush up in front. No real chance to make a move coming into turn 3 though, and turn 4 is pretty much single file unless you're already side by side. Not quite getting a drive off the exit of the corner to threaten down into this left-hander here, but it's not the most of ideal overtaking places either. So now it's just a case of just trying to open up this right-hander for myself, get a good exit if we possibly can, translate in the power quite nicely. But we're not going to be good, not going to be close enough for a potential move here coming into the hairpin. So continuing to follow for the moment. Car understeering slightly through the mid-corner. Now coming up through the Schumacher S's, just a slight breathe on the throttle, almost coming to 0.5% as the Audi in front goes and dips the wheels onto the gravel. That's going to hurt their momentum, as you can see. It's now going to have a look to the inside coming in here into this left-hander. It's making it very, very tight, having to use the curb, the car over-rotating a little bit there, which has hurt our speed coming off. Porsche was having a little bit of a sniff down the inside. Car sliding through the mid-corner as we're trying to get the power on. Made it very, very tight for the Porsche behind, who's now actually compromised as well on the exit to the second Porsche of Lobomir, who was behind them and looks like has managed to slip on through before we get up to the chicane. So very, very close proximity to one another in terms of our racing, and the cars jostling for positions, and even the Mercedes is now having a go at that damaged Audi of Romanenko. So I want to try and pass Bush as quickly as I possibly can to try and close up onto the back of them, because I know that that Mercedes, without any damage, is probably going to have some better performance and lap pace than the Audi, and if he gets ahead it probably start pulling away, and obviously that's going to make it more difficult for me to try and get a 5th position here. As you can see, 4th position is quite far up the road, barely can see him, but actually the Mercedes gets tapped there coming through turn 3. That's gifted us a position. Bush just outbraking himself slightly, probably not predicting that the 2 cars ahead of them are going to be going quite so slowly through the apex, and the Mercedes unfortunately got turned. But that's now put us up into 7th place. Things are looking pretty good, but we do have the Porsche there lurking behind, so slightly defensive coming here into the hairpin. Just try and hold a nice tight line as they get very close to my rear bumper once again. That's obviously Hedi Corsa radar display up in the top centre, coming in very useful as the car in front once again goes and runs a little bit wide coming through the Schumacher S and dips the wheels onto the gravel, which is allowing us to close back up on them. Using a bit more curb than I did on the previous lap, but the car was a lot more stable that time. Much better run there through that right-hander, but I didn't have a Porsche sniffing down my inside, so I obviously had to give a little bit of room on that previous lap. So although I'm feeling the pressure from behind, dealing with it quite nicely at the moment, however, I will say that this race is not completely mistake-free, so make sure you hang around to see what happens later on as we come through the final corner now. Obviously, previous fastest laps have had a bit of battling going on, so we're improving our lap times whenever we get a slightly cleaner run than we previously had, as we get very close to the back of the Audi there, and once again we get a Porsche very, very close to the rear of our car as well, coming through that first turn. So pretty good driving there all round by everyone to avoid any contact. But here is another look at that first lap and the opening corners. So we are the white-orange car on the left-hand side with the black carbon roof, just coming into the first corner right there on the outside. There's a little bit of contact there between a couple of cars on the inside, pretty much 3 wide. As we come into the second corner, I can start to see the chaos unfolding in front of me. So I tried to hug the corner as tight as I possibly could to the inside, and I actually ended up taking to the grass a little bit in avoidance of a couple of cars where the track looked pretty much completely blocked. And again, coming through turn 3 as well, and coming out through the exit here, I was basically almost forced out wide there as I didn't have any additional room. But we managed to survive it, that was the main thing, and we managed to gain a whole bunch of positions out of it as well. So coming back to the actual main race here, we've got 15 minutes and 45 seconds remaining. Porsche behind, still applying a moderate amount of pressure. They've stayed very, very close between the 2 Porsches of Lobomir and Boy over the course of pretty much the opening phase of this race. They've always kind of hung in and around the 0.4, 0.5 second mark, or have been closer than that. As you can see, always popping up on the radar there at the top middle of the screen as the 2 Audis in front, having a little bit of a jostle for position there coming off the exit of the chicane. Presented me with a slight opportunity to try and go for a move coming into the final corner, but didn't quite work as Bush kind of closed the door on me a little bit there, filtering back in behind the damaged Audi. So we're under threat now from the Porsche behind, so we're just going defensive here as the 2 cars in front are going side by side through this first turn. We've got the inside line as the Porsches again just trying to have a little bit of a look at us, getting very close to the rear end of my car. I don't think there was actually any contact. This is there now on the outside coming through turn 3, and it's very, very tight as we come through turn 4, just about managing to leave almost the car's width, effectively forcing them to go up and mount the curb on the inside there as we put up a pretty stern and hard defence to try and hold on to this position. But with Bush now up into P5 and past this damaged Audi here of Romanenko, means that he can start pulling away as we go and dip the wheels onto the gravel on the exit. That's hurting our momentum. We're now having to go defensive to the Porsche behind here, coming into this hairpin as they're on the outside, trying to make a move there, making it very, very tight between the 2 of us. But we managed to filter through the corner okay without any contact. But yeah, the pressure is now on me to try and get past Romanenko as quickly as I possibly can to try and prevent Bush from scampering off into the distance and solidifying that P4 as the Porsche behind again getting very, very close to my rear bumper. Time and time again at numerous different points throughout this race, cars getting very, very close to one another. So now just trying to find a place where I can line myself up for a potential move on Romanenko. If we can get a decent run coming off the exit here, and if they compromise their line through slightly, which they do on the exit, getting a little bit squirrely there. We try to make a slight lunge down the inside, but it doesn't quite work as Romanenko covers that off. We get contacted and bumped by the Porsche that unsettled our car, almost pitching us into a half spin, but we managed to recover it. However, we have lost a couple of positions from that. Now dropping down into P10. Just checking the damage there as well. So now trying to immediately look to the outside of the Porsche, but not quite working as the car behind us. This Porsche, there's a lot of Porsches here in this race. Now threatening, trying to go around the outside of turn 2 here as I ran a little bit deep through that first corner. If I can hold a good tight line coming through here, we should be able to just about nose ahead, and we do near enough clearing them before we get to turn 4 and completely shutting the door in their face to prevent them from making any potential overtaking lunge coming into that 4th corner there. But man, oh man, halfway through the race and it's already been action-packed in this opening half. And now I've got a little bit of work cut out for me to try and regain those positions that I lost Lobomir is not backed off and relinquished the positions from the contact from the final corner half a lap ago. But it's kind of, I'd say it is mostly his fault, but at the same time he probably didn't expect myself and the Audi in front of me that I was trying to make a move on to go quite as slow and to check out quite as much going through that final corner. Thankfully I didn't lose too much time from it. Obviously lost a bit, but managing to settle in a little bit now. But we are losing ground to the 4 or 5 cars up in front, and you can see the one thing that I was wanting to try and urgently and avoid happening, which is push in the Audi up in the distance, pulling away and starting to build a gap over Romanenko already. So trying to do a little bit of a mental reset. Forget the incident that happened on the previous lap. So now I'm actually focused on the hand that has been dealt with me, or dealt to me shall I say, and see what we can actually do with it. Gap of just over about half a second to the car up in front. Obviously Constantina effect coming into play there, coming into the first corner. So close up and then they open the gap back up on the exit. But if we can get a good smooth run through these first few turns, we'll try and close that gap up, as the cars are following pretty closely to one another. So no doubt eyes will be all over the place, looking at the road ahead, trying to look for gaps and potential overtaking opportunities, but also in the mirrors and at the radar, making sure that the car behind isn't going for any moves and obviously forcing you to go defensive. So it looks like the Porsche's having a little bit of a look to the inside of the Audi of Romanenko up in front, but not quite able to do anything with it coming into the hairpin. Up on our previous fastest lap at the moment, and the gap staying fairly steady as the Porsche was a little bit wide there coming through the left of the Schumacher S's. It's gone and hurt their run and momentum through, so closing back up another tenth or two that they had eked out over the course of this lap. You can see everyone really pushing. I'm having to work the wheel and really try and balance the car coming through these corners. Not quite got on top of the setup around this circuit. Feels pretty good, hence why I shared it at the beginning of this race, but there's definitely still some improvement to be made as the Porsche gets very, very loose there coming through the chicane at the end of the lap, darts off to the left hand side of the track off onto the grass, and that's gifted us P9. So we'll take that freebie, 154.9, so a good improvement, and it looks like we're closing up on the guys in front, although the last lap didn't actually count as my best lap. It must have gone off track somewhere along the line and invalidated it. So a little bit of space in front, just trying to get the traction down coming through turn 2, trying to cut a tiny little bit off on the inside of turn 3. A little bit too much curb there on the inside of turn 4, which obviously bounced and unsettled the car. That hurt the run coming off the corner, but still just about keeping this lap green. It's right there teetering on the border, and we're still keeping ourselves within half a second of Tempest in the BMW in front. Got 8.5 minutes left in this race, so time is ticking away, but the tyres feel good. They don't feel like they're heavily graining up or blistering as the Audi and the Porsche are side by side. I think the Audi went a little bit deep there through the hairpin, and the Porsche managed to slip up alongside. However, did not get the run that they would have wanted coming off the exit of the chicane, and that's gone and hurt their momentum as the BMW had a slight moment there going through the Schumacher S's, and we managed to sneak on through before we get to the braking zone for that left-hander that we've just been through, and that is another position, another opportunity pounced on and taken. So we're now up into P8 and we're closing up onto the Porsche of Lobomir up in front. Just having a look to the outside of the Audi coming in towards this chicane. It's going to be difficult to hang it around the outside there, but it almost looked like he was going to try for a moment and then slip back in. Obviously I'm predicting that, and I now got the BMW sitting under my rear wing, sniffing around for any potential opportunity as the car sliding slightly through the mid corner. He's right there underneath the rear wing as we come down the start finish straight, trying to both go defensive covering off that inside line, but also try and get the slipstream of the two cars up in front. Still going to hold that inside line as we come in through the braking zone for turn 1, as he's having a look to the outside now. The Porsche and the Audi look to be swapping positions, and indeed the Porsche has managed to slip on through as the Audi went deep and didn't quite get the car rotated on exit quick enough to hold the Porsche off. So now we need to try and find our way through as quickly as we possibly can, see if we can get ourselves up into the top 6. I think the top 5 is now out of the question, as Bush has now managed to get near enough the best part of a 3.5 second gap to this train of cars here. Romanenko being an unfortunate cork in the bottle with the damage that he sustained on the rear of the Audi, obviously having an impact on their performance. Trying to get the power coming off the exit of the hairpin at the bottom of the hill there. Didn't seem like there was any major dramas, although the Audi there in front looks like he's got a little bit loose. We've gotten loose as well, getting a little bit distracted by that dip in the wheels onto the gravel on the inside, losing the car as I was trying to regain it, and then unfortunately making contact with Romanenko, which pitched us into a pretty big half spin and came to a stop. Car also stalled, so I had to fire it back up, but that's gone and hurt us very, very badly now, as we now got 42.49, near enough 12.5 seconds worth of damage on the car. So standard stop is 30 seconds. We've now got some very hot rear tyres as well. See temperature of it on the top right hand corner of the Motec display on the dash of the car, but also looking at the HUD gauge, you can see the yellow in the core of the tyres, and also the pressures way up above where I want them to be after sliding and flash heating them. So I'm going to have to be careful here on this lap as I try and regain my composure, kind of regain my focus after that mistake. And no doubt you'll want to see it again. So here is the action replay, and coming up through the Schumacher S's, the Audi in front just gets a little bit loose. That kind of slightly distracts us. I lift off the throttle slightly and actually bounce a little bit too much over the inside curve, which then unsettles me even more, and in my attempt to try and regain the car, we caught a little bit of a tank slapper, swung back the other way unfortunately into the Audi of Romanenko, made contact with them, and that then bounced me way off the circuit and caused me a whole bunch of positions to lose. So that incident's very much on me. Obviously Romanenko made a slight mistake in getting loose, but I can't blame him for the contact there. That was very much all my fault, and just ended up taking a little bit too much curb on the inside, which was unsettling what was already the beginning of an unsettling car, and made it even worse. I think actually Romanenko actually managed to regather his slide back up before I made contact with him. But yeah, that's cost him positions as well, but obviously I've come off a lot worse. But less than 4 minutes now here remaining in this race, and we've got some work to do. We've got 2 seconds to the Mercedes up in front, so let's see if we can actually close that Mercedes back down and see if we can regain some positions here in these final few minutes here of this race. So taking plenty of curb going through that chicane there, running a little bit deep, having to fight the car a little bit as it was kind of wanting to wash out a little bit further wide. I think just overdriving the car into that final corner. So let's try and settle down and get a decent lap here now that the tyre pressures have settled somewhat, and there is the first sign of a potential opportunity with the Mercedes of Washoe making a mistake there in turn 1, running rather deep, and that's half the gap that we had to them, from 2 seconds down to 1 second. But that was a pretty poor turn 3, again just overdriving the car, pushing a little bit too hard going into the corner and stepping out the rear end, but we managed to gather it back up, but we lost 2-3 tenths in the process of doing so.
There's a slow car behind.
White flag in front. It's always quite nice to hear. There's potential opportunities on the line, and it looks like that J-Boy has ran out wide and has actually lost the position. So a familiar name here from this race. So we're continuing to close up onto the back of Washer in front, and you can actually see a bit of a train of cars up in front as well. Some of these positions closing up. A little bit more cautious this time, coming through the Schumacher S's. It seems like the Mercedes has got quite a bit of downforce going through there. Again, climbing up over the curb, and the car getting a little bit unsettled. Really need to work on the setup, try and settle the car down in a few places. Try and optimize it. Coming through chicane, fairly neat and tidy. And the gap, 0.7 seconds to Washer in front. But it looks like we're closing up on the cars in front of him, or front of them as well. It certainly looks like we've got the pace over them. Though one of the cars behind BMW is got some pace over us as well, and gained a tenth or so on that previous lap. So let's try and have a tidier lap 12 here. Although we do run out a little bit wide, but avoid getting a track limits warning, as the system deemed that we didn't gain any advantage. Pushing on now into this left-hander. Cars closing up with one another, as they're probably at this point now where in the last few minutes I do believe we are actually going one extra lap. This is not the final lap of the race as far as I know. So those who are tight on fuel obviously have to do some fuel preservation and fuel saving in order to try and make it to the distance. I think that Audi up in front is actually Romanenko as well, who obviously we made contact with and had damage prior to our contact as well. So no doubt their car's in a pretty bad way as the Porsche there, not having a good run through the Schumacher S's. We're not going to be close enough though to make a move here coming into this left-hander, although they look like they've got some damage to the rear of their car and looks a little bit squirrely coming through some of these corners, as we have quite that drift ourselves going through that right-hander. So now the race timer is ticked down to 0, but we will be going one more lap after this one, so we do still have some opportunities to try and make some positions. The Porsche has a pretty poor run through the chicane there. That allows us to slip on through before the braking zone of the final corner as they are rejoining back onto the circuit. So we're now up in P17. Let's see if we can get another position or two before the end of this lap. We know we've got the pace. We just need to be clean, consistent, take the opportunities when they come to us, as Romanenko there looks to be holding up the black and green Porsche. That is 2 cars ahead, sorry, grey and green. Who then actually goes and makes a mistake by the looks of it. Maybe contact between himself and the Mercedes here, that's here in front of us, but that's gifted us P16 now. And we're now right up onto the back of the Mercedes. And it seems like Romanenko is really struggling with fuel, possibly having dropped down to a more conservative engine map, possibly doing a little bit of lifting and coasting as well. And that BMW that I mentioned a lap or two ago is now right onto the rear of our car. So this is going to be a very tight and close finish, as we're trying to find and look for a potential opportunity to try and sneak past either one of these 2 cars up in front of us as we get caught up on the inside curb there. The rear of the car breaking loose, a little bit of contact from the BMW from behind, but we managed to regather it back up before we get to the Schumacher S's. That looks like they're going to be sneaking on through though as we go through there. Tries to hang it around the outside but didn't quite work. Now we're very much under threat from 2 Porsches behind. I'm going to go a little bit defensive, 3 wide. This is not where we want to be, as we're sandwiched between cars and cars are all over the place in and around us. We somehow managed to slip on through without too much contact and still facing forwards. It looks like we managed to gain a position there somewhere along the line, I think, from Romanenko. Obviously we lost the position to the BMW, but we kept the 2 Porsches behind who almost both overtook us going through that left-hander after the Schumacher S is coming through the chicane now, just trying to hold on to the rear of the car as it's moving around, going very defensive coming into the final corner as the Porsche tried to have a little bit of a look and a little bit of a lunge, a little bit deep on the exit there, but we managed to get a slightly better drive off the exit to come across the line in P15
Good job.
at the end of that rather hectic race. And boy, did I tell you that it was going to be an exciting one. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give the video a like. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. But otherwise, please consider subscribing, and until the next live stream or video, thank you for watching, have fun, stay safe, and take care.